Traffic is our issue today on In Focus here on NCW Live. I'd like to welcome into the studio Jeff Wilkins with the Chelan Douglas Transportation Council, the regional transportation planning organization here for the two-county area. Nick Manzaro is with us from the Washington State DOT in the Central Washington Division. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Good to be here, Steve.
Talking about traffic. If we leave now, we can beat it. The old joke. But again, we've invited Nick and Jeff to join us here today to tell us about an ongoing study that's been conducted on the Upper Valley, specifically US 2, between Kashmir and actually all the way up to Coles Corner, as I understand.
Yeah, with
Jeff,
the
why don't you
focus.
give us a little background here on what it is it's all about?
Sure, we looked at the whole corridor, but the focus really is the weekend congestion issues in Leavenworth, and anybody who drives to or through Leavenworth has experienced. It's gotten worse, and the council wanted to do this study and basically see what we can do about it.
And so, Nick, that's quite a charge. I was going to say.
I would also say too that the status of the corridor has been increased internal to the DOT region, and the questions have been swirling. What do we do about weekend congestion on the corridor? Mm-hmm. So we were able to partner funding-wise on this project with Chelan Douglas Transportation Council and the DOT funding. Unfortunately, there's not a silver bullet for fixing quote-unquote the congestion issues on the corridor, but I think we've got a good suite of project strategies to roll out to the public.
I think the cattle have already left the barn in terms of the problem, because it's been evolving over the past several years
Sure.
since Leavenworth has really become kind of a tourist mecca.
Right. Yeah, and we expect it'll continue to get worse.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that this menu of improvement concepts that we've come up with, and we're going to put these forward in the community meeting Thursday night, but also, it's on the website, and we really hope people will go to that website and take a closer look, get a hold of us if they have questions. But ultimately, when the council adopts this study in a couple of months, probably 2 months, what that really means is the regional council is endorsing this suite of recommendations. We don't own the roads. DOT owns the highway. The city of Leavenworth owns their roads. Really, our role is to do these studies, come up with at least conceptually sound ideas, and whatever projects that are on this list of proposals we have that, particularly up in the Leavenworth community, that people really get excited about and support, we'll continue as regional council to support the efforts to further develop those things, turn them into real projects, find the money to build them. But I think that this really is a starting point where we're laying out some proposed solutions. Lots of small solutions, lots of 5 and 10% fixes. Mm-hmm. Like Nick said, we don't have any big silver bullet solution that just makes the traffic congestion go away.
Well, again, we're talking again about an open house that's being held Thursday at Cascade High School.
Yes.
And it's a chance for you to get out and see the elements of the study that's been ongoing now since last January,
a little over a year.
Yep.
A little over a year now.
Mm-hmm.
And basically there are 4 main aspects to this study. And Nick, can you outline those for us?
Yeah, the corridor's broken down into similar contexts. We've got the section from Coles Corner to just west of Leavenworth, the central Leavenworth section.
Tumwater Canyon.
Right. Well, that's where the corridor breaks.
Right.
What we've done as the department, and I'm glad that CDTC shares this, is issues tend to be similar within different corridor functional contextual sections.
Mm-hmm. Like Tumwater Canyon.
Like Tumwater Canyon,
Mm-hmm.
Central Leavenworth, of course, there's a lot of similar issues there with parking and peak congestion.
Each has its separate kind of
Right.
issues.
And it helps us direct the conversation towards solution packages that might fit within each section.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got the section from Leavenworth down to Big Y,
Okay.
and then Big Y to just west of Kashmir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But the downtown Leavenworth area, that presents quite a few challenges, I suppose, not just for traffic flows, but for parking, pedestrian use, and everything else.
Right.
And that's one of the things that we're really excited about with the project is that we did a really robust public outreach phase early on in the project to inform the guiding principles, which help us get to a lot of different project ideas down to strategies that people want to see occur. And I think what we've done in Leavenworth is provided some strategies that provide options for shifting to other modes of travel. So out of the vehicle to pedestrian, transit, and biking modes. So not just your typical sort of single occupancy.
Right, and really what that means is making it more attractive to walk. Maybe particularly if, say, the new adventure park is built and goes in at the far end, the far west end of Leavenworth. If that's a more attractive walking environment, maybe more people will choose not to try to drive back and forth and park 2 or 3 times. Those are all small but meaningful improvements. Also, there's pieces of this that aim to make Link Bus more attractive and useful for people. Make it, and even including
service more than
local shuttle services, even making the commute trip, or the visitor trip between Wenatchee and Leavenworth and back faster
Okay.
and more reliable.
You're also working with the city on parking as well, making that a little easier, because I know there are a lot of us that live in the area that probably avoid Leavenworth during the weekends because of that very reason.
Yeah, the supposition is that the parking is inadequate, but what we found is that there's a lot of circulation and not highest and best use of the available parking. So the study also aligns with the city's parking plan, that the city has developed a parking committee that is championing the staged approach to the parking management within the city.
And we really didn't rewrite. They had recently completed their parking strategy in the city. That's really a city endeavor. We've captured and sort of echoed the emphasis and said, yeah, it really is. It's good business, good money, and just smart management to make sure you're really utilizing the parking supply you have. And I think the main challenge in Leavenworth, and it's a challenge in just about any downtown, is, I don't know the number, but if, say, 30% of the available parking spaces are being used all day by employees, the highest and best use is probably for the visitors who want to come and spend money in the community, or even the local who just wants to get downtown to run an errand or get to the clinic.
But there's that ongoing struggle, just availability for people to park, and that includes the employees.
It's a big challenge.
Yeah.
And one of the things I want to underscore too is the state made a several $million investment in the new parking ride facility behind Safeway, which has a lot of parking capacity, but also high frequency transit access through town. And the study recommendations focus on maintaining headways from that park and ride facility to keep the transit moving through town and hopefully capitalize on some of that parking capacity.
Notice you've got you're building a little roundabout as one of the possible strategies up there at that intersection of Icicle Road and Highway 2 at the west end of town.
Well, I wouldn't say building necessarily. We're proposing a roundabout is a good solution in that location.
Yeah, it has a couple of benefits. We were talking about Link Transit. Currently the Route 22 ends right at that intersection and has to kind of work its way through the gas station parking lot to turn around. So the roundabout becomes a natural, better U-turn for the bus. But really, I think the main benefit is when it's busy on Highway 2 on the weekend, if you live or you're just trying to get to and from Icicle Road, it can be really difficult to find a gap to turn back onto the highway or to get from the highway onto Icicle. So the roundabout has that benefit if it kind of equalizes all the approaches. And we think it'll make access to and from the neighborhoods.
Much of your study, much of your study is focusing on Leavenworth, the downtown core, and that area there along Highway 2. But you're also looking at those areas from Cashmere up to Leavenworth. What are some of the issues there, from like Cashmere to Shaston? I'm sure that there's some traffic flow issues there too.
What we found is really the issues that we were able to tackle in the study focus on central Leavenworth, mostly. In those outlying corridor segments, what we've recommended is low-cost, high-value improvements, like high-friction surface treatments to address some of the icing that we see in shaded corners.
Okay. But not necessarily traffic flow issues.
No, there's a lot of capacity in those segments.
Because I know that there have been some issues with some of the surrounding neighborhoods, especially during the Christmas lighting festival and such, that people are using some of the side roads rather than using Highway 2 to get into Leavenworth and back.
From Peshastin in, that becomes a challenge. From Peshastin to Kashmir, I think the main issues that came up were safety types of things that Nick described, and also some of the challenges related to long-distance cycling through the Upper Valley. You know, on the highway, a couple of the bridges are not safe for bicycling on. And so those constraints, not all of those we didn't identify a really great solution for all of those, but we maybe move the ball down the field a little more.
I know we're a long way away from funding issues as far as this, or even getting it on the fast track to construction or anything. But what is the timeline, I guess, for completing this particular project, Nick?
Well, the DOT doesn't currently have any funding identified to address the strategies recommended in the project right now in the plan. But there are some low-cost things that we can tackle within existing right-of-way. One of the projects that we're really excited about is repurposing some of the existing right-of-way in the Leavenworth section of US 2 to provide bus access lanes and also right turn lanes for neighborhood accessibility, which is one thing we heard early on in the project is, you know, people are concerned how they're going to get to and from their homes, and then also the emergency access component for fire and law enforcement. And so what we found is in one section of US 2, the ability to provide some better accessibility through just changing the stripes and not doing an expensive capital intensive project.
Really just reworking the way the lanes are defined between the existing curbs.
Oh, interesting.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that can be done with asphalt and
A lot less
Yeah.
than a traditional project, certainly. Yeah.
So I know you've been making good use of the web and social media to get the word out. Again, there is an open house Thursday. I believe it starts when, 6:30?
5:30.
5:30 at the Cascade High School, where you can get more information on this. And you can also go to their website to get more on this US 2 Upper Valley Transportation Study. Anything else you'd like to share with us before we let you go? Jeff?
Well, you know, my hope is that we can get the word out about these recommendations, because there's some potential to do some good things up in the Upper Valley with these projects. But ultimately, it's going to be up to the community whether or not they like these ideas and support them. So even though we're wrapping this study up now and we're having this open house to present our conclusions, I think we're both very interested in any ongoing conversation, whether it's with the city of Leavenworth, Chelan County, community groups who are more curious about this. My hope is that this stimulates some dialogue in the Upper Valley. And to your question about funding, if something is clearly supported, there's a consensus, yeah, we really want to do this, that makes it a lot easier to find the funding. So, you know, and that's part of what we do at the Regional Council is champion projects that have regional benefit and strong support in the communities they would be in to try to find the money to get them built.
Just as a primer for our viewers, maybe you can tell us how you prioritize projects here for the Chelan and Douglas County area through your regional planning body.
Well, you know, the shortest answer, and honestly the sincere answer, is our board is elected officials. It's mostly mayors and county commissioners. DOT is on the board, our port districts, but Link. Most are elected officials, and at the end of the day, they're learning about all the challenges and all the needs, whether it's the Upper Valley or the Highway 28 corridor or Central here in Wenatchee. And I think basically they're applying their best judgment as elected officials. Part of the benefit of the council is it's a forum for the elected officials throughout the region, including Chelan and Waterville, not just Wenatchee and Leavenworth, to get together and work on these things collectively. And then they debate it out and they set their priorities based on these discussions.
Well, I've got you in here. Do you mind if I ask you what you're hearing in the legislature during the session here about these funding issues? Because I know that there are some proposals out there for changing the way that we, pay for highway projects.
There are a lot of different parallel discussions. There is the one that's sort of probably a long-term, it's been going on for 10 years more quietly. It's really risen up, this idea of switching from a gas tax to a miles traveled charge of some sort. That I think the legislature is considering a small step to begin implementing that just on electric vehicles. I don't really have an educated guess about whether or not that'll pass. I think they're basically testing the waters on that to see if some small implementation might work politically.
Have you been able to digest the initiative 976 and what kind of an impact it's going to have on funding projects here, Nick?
I can't speak to that, but
Leave that for the administration.
but the best information available that we're able to share is on the OFM website.
Good.
That speaks to 976.
Good.
Yeah, and I would say what the legislature is doing is waiting out the courts. You know, they have a strategy for deferring some projects if necessary. They have another strategy they're discussing for backfilling the funds with, I don't know if I'd call them rainy day funds, but in the short term, I think they can kind of cover the losses from the initiative. But if it sticks, certainly there's going to be some major reductions that they still have to sort out on what we do and don't pay for anymore in transportation.
Jeff Wilkins, Nick Manzaro, thank you for joining me here on In Focus today. Again, a reminder that there's an open house Thursday starting at 5 o'clock at Cascade High School, where you can learn more about the US 2 Upper Valley Transportation Study. Also, make use of their website because it's a wealth of information, has all the illustrations and documents you need to know to make a good decision on how you'd like to see traffic managed in the Upper Valley.
Super.
Thank you very much, guys.
Likewise, thank you, Steve.
Thanks,
You
Steve.
bet. Thanks for joining us here on NCW Life. I'm Steve Hare.